So, there are many ways to skin a cat, especially when it comes to finances and so on. And one of those ways is to, let's say you want to buy a house, you want to buy an apartment, whatever, and you want to start, I don't know, your real estate ventures. One way to do so is obviously, and this is given how housing is so tremendously expensive these days, and how lots of young people can't afford to even buy their first home. I mean, most of them can't because it's just impossible. The incline to climb up is so steep. I think this applies for in general for most of the Western world, especially in America, also in my country, by the way, which is a little bit separate than the rest of Europe. However, most of the real estate, most of the, excuse me, not the commercial, but the private residencies are owned largely by the baby boomer generation. And, their houses have increased tremendously in value over the past 30 to 40 years. Because, well, obviously, there was a lot of houses available on the market when I bought, and prices were much lower. Now, the interest rate was higher as well. But from what I've heard, because I've spoken to quite a few of these fellas, they all told me that, look, when I bought my first house, when our family bought our first home, it was about the price of 2 annual salaries, give or take. Like, that was it. And that was a normal price to pay. So if you made, I don't know, $40,000 a year, which was normal way back then, a typical house would cost you about $80,000, maybe 90, maybe even 100,000. Today, you can only set and forget about it. Just forget about it. You have to pay at least, I don't know, for a usual house, for like a separate house. I ain't talking about some small apartment in a town. I'm talking about a house with a garden, a property, the whole 9 yards, so to speak. You have to pay at the very least 300,000 to 400,000, maybe even more. I mean, for sure more. It all depends on where you are living, by the way. I know people who live in old houses who paid somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million. And these are worn down, old, rather ugly houses. Intrinsically and materialistically, there's no way that these houses are worth, or the properties even are worth, $1 million. It's just that the market prices has, pushed the price up, or the market, has pushed the prices up. Now, my point of all this is just to let you know the situation before I I dive into this cat, because I once saw an article about some fella who bought his first apartment and wanted to pay down frantically on his mortgage, on his loan. And his way of doing so was by becoming a landlord himself and renting out the apartment to somebody else, whilst living in a small tent in the woods outside of town. That was his plan. He would essentially live for free, because in my country, pretty much everywhere where there's not people, you can theoretically just build your own camp and settle down and live in a tent if you like, and nobody can stop you. And that was his plan, kudos to him if he wants to do that. I mean, I couldn't have done it at all. I mean, those cold winters, for all the talk about climate change, there's still cold winters in my country. So it's not like he was given a break in that regard. Anyway, the point is, so his plan was, I'm going to live in a tent for 2 years, and by then I'm going to have paid down my mortgage. And then I'm going to go buy more apartments and probably do the same. Or, I don't know, scale my real estate empire. Good for him, by all means. I don't think it's as straightforward. And the point that I'm making here is, there's many ways to skin a cat financially. If it were me, I'd never do it. If it were me, well, I'd obviously consider or entertaining the possibility of renting out my apartment for sure, whilst living cheaply somewhere else. But I wouldn't have lived in a tent. In that regard, I'd either, I don't know, buy a, or excuse me, not buy, but rent a smaller apartment myself and live cheaper in that apartment. And or even if somebody close to me, if I had some family members who could give me shelter for, I don't know, for a couple of years in exchange for me doing some work for them, for them or whatever, then I would have done that as well, probably. But I wouldn't have lived in a tent outside in the woods. Anyway, I don't know. I don't really know what I want to do with this video, except enlightening you that there are many ways to skin a cat. And one of those ways, or several of those ways, I offer actually with respect to persuasion, sales, adverts, and also money making. Or excuse me, not money making. I don't want to use that term really because it's such a loaded term. Sales, business, and that's it. Sales and business. Get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching it or listening to this, and I'll see you there.